So Brian Kelly just got fired from LSU this weekend, and it seems like everyone is talking about it, but no one is sad this dude is leaving Baton Rouge. In fact, the whole college football community, myself included, have actually rallied together against Kelly and his time at LSU. Now, ex-players, parents, and personnel are all sharing their horror stories about this dude. He's not a good person. And by the end of this video, if you for some reason feel bad for Brian Kelly or feel like he's actually a good dude, I don't really know what to tell you. First of all, let's talk about the details of his firing. Kelly was under a 10-year, $95 million contract. He was only in year 4, so he has 6 years left. He will be making $54 million over those 6 years. That means that Brian Kelly will make over $24,000 a day. That's more than minimum wage to sit on his freaking couch. Bro is filthy rich, and he's only going to get richer. When talking about this guy's firing, we cannot ignore the temper issues. Sure, LSU says they fired Brian Kelly because he failed to win a national championship. But come on, there are only a few guys that can say, hey, we've won a national title in the current college football landscape. One of the driving factors to me has to be that final meeting with the LSU athletic director. You just lost to Texas A&M, an inferior program historically. Great this year, they're undefeated. But in Kelly's mind, he's facing an inferior coach, Mike Elko, because that's just how he thinks. You go into half up 18-14, but in the second half, you collapse. Total disaster. You lose 49-25. The offense goes stagnant. And on Sunday, AD Scott Woodward wants to have a chat about the staff moving forward, particularly offensive coordinator Joe Sloan. This isn't good because Sloan is likely a Kelly yes man. According to reports, this meeting got ugly. Coach got in a shouting match and he left the building, essentially saying, fire me. LSU didn't want to do that. That's a really big buyout. I just said $54 million over 6 years. But the board of trustees were out. You were about to get Governor of Louisiana Jeff Landry involved. You cannot lose that support internally and expect to keep your job. Kelly has rubbed guys the wrong way his entire career, but since getting to the Bayou in 2021, it's inevitable that some big donors would say, I'm not giving this dude. Who can blame him? Remember earlier in the season when Kelly berated a journalist? Or how about when he threw a temper tantrum like a little kid in 2024 when his heavily favored LSU team lost to USC?
We're sitting here again talking about the same things.
Brian Kelly has a reputation, and it's not a good one. He doesn't have rapport with his players, with the fans, and most importantly, the athletic program at the university. Kelly was very unpopular with players. It was pretty obvious no one liked playing for the dude. That has only become more apparent since his firing. No ex-player is boo-hooing, saying it was undeserved. In fact, after the firing, Louisiana Tech commit Kervin Johnson Jr. flipped LSU. And the rumor is that Johnson didn't like Brian Kelly, but he liked LSU. He wanted to stay in state. That's why he chose Louisiana Tech. But now Brian Kelly's gone, so he chooses LSU. Not a good look, coach. Not a good look. Next, we got to talk about Kyren Lacy. Look, it's a travesty how the situation was handled top to bottom, no doubt about it. Unfortunately, Kyren is no longer here with us. He was a special human being. But after his death, you would think the coach of his team would reach out to the family, maybe pay for the funeral, show up at the house, at least send some condolences. What did Brian Kelly do? Not a dang thing. Kyren's dad said on a Facebook post that interim Frank Wilson actually did reach out to the family after his son's death. Also in that post, he mentioned that he didn't get a call from the guy in the back. Oh, would you look at that? That guy in the back? It's Brian Kelly. What a jerk move. That young man played for your team. He won you games. He helped you have a successful season. If he would have played in the NFL, which he was going to, then you would have meat rode him till you couldn't anymore. I'd bet on that. Brian Kelly could have at least said, hey, I hate to hear what happened. It was a terrible thing. And he could have been an advocate for mental health, particularly in young athletes and his players. But he said nothing, and he carried on about his life. This is who Brian Kelly really is. In 2023, Kelly was under deep scrutiny for how his staff handled the situation of Greg Brooks Jr. Brooks was a captain for the Tigers in 2023. In September of the same year, he was at practice where he started to feel some discomfort, more specifically nausea, dizziness, and even some vomiting on the sideline. Coach Kelly didn't react much, and the training staff let it go unchecked. It was then revealed in further testing that Greg Brooks had a brain tumor, and it required surgery to remove. Today, Brooks is disabled. Kelly claimed that reports of negligence were completely false and that he personally was involved in communication as well as support for Brooks and his family. The lawsuit from his family claims that Brian Kelly has not communicated with them since October of 2023. That's 2 years for something his staff essentially ignored. Now, these lawsuits are still ongoing, so we don't know exactly what happened, but what we do know is that this situation was so poorly mishandled. How about when Kelly got to LSU, or should I say when he got the job? There had been rumors, and it made a lot of sense, but Kelly was adamant that he was was loyal to the Irish. I'm not going to fault him over this because that's just coach's lingo. It happens all the time. It doesn't mean a thing. But how he took the LSU job is just wrong. He was at a Notre Dame recruit's home loading up on barbecue and burnt ends when he stepped out for a phone call. When he came back in, he made no mention of what it was about and continued to talk to the recruit about Notre Dame. That's why when reports came out saying that Brian Kelly was going to take the LSU job, the recruit was really confused. Kelly claimed he wanted to have the resources to win a national championship, and apparently Notre Dame just didn't have those resources. Right, Marcus Freeman? Oh yeah, how many title games has LSU gone to under Brian Kelly? That's right, the same amount that I've taken North Carolina to. The only difference? I don't get paid $10 million annually. Chapel Hill, y'all know where to find me though. Finally, and this one's up for debate, I'm going to simply explain the situation as unbiased as possible, and you can decide whether or not you think Brian Kelly should be held accountable. It's a windy day at Notre Dame. Video assistant Declan Sullivan tries to tell staff members that it's not safe to use a scissor lift to film practice in winds over 25 miles per hour. For context, they got wind speeds of up to 53 miles per hour on this practice day. After reluctantly getting on the lift while filming practice, the lift collapsed, killing Sullivan. There was some argument on whether practice should have been held indoors from the first place. Where this involved Brian Kelly is it was his call to have these practices outdoors. Now, he has since stated multiple times that he should not have had outdoor practice and that safety measures should have been put in place. What I will say is I don't believe it is the head coach's job to make sure the lift for practice is active and ready to withstand winds, but he also has to think about the safety of himself, his players, his coaches, and his staff members like video assistants. This is a team effort, and some of this has to fall on him. So it's clear people don't like Brian Kelly. His arrogance, his decisions, and overall his attitude has caused Kelly to become one of the most unlikable people in college sports. What sucks is that while Kelly is getting wealthy off his buyout, another team will probably take a chance on the 64-year-old with baggage and no national championships. This dude isn't a winner. He's a fraud, and there's a reason no one likes this guy. I say good riddance to Brian Kelly at LSU.